Hello and welcome to Audiobook Reviews. In this review, I'll be discussing Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Now, this was the first book I had read by Mark Lawrence. I'd heard good things about multiple of his series, and so jumped in and really did not know what to expect. And boy, does he put you right in there. This book is definitely a very gritty, grimdark type fantasy. And it's interesting because it's written almost in the style of more what you would see in YA books, where it is first person. It's a very young protagonist, and it's very fast paced, action heavy, lot going on at all times. But the actual source material, the very, very gritty, dark, violent imagery definitely clashes with that idea of a YA series. So really what it ended up being is a very quick, easy read that had a lot more breadth to it than you would expect from a book you're getting through that quickly. We follow in this first book of the Broken Empire series a very young, he's 13 and then turns 14 throughout the book. And then we also have flashbacks to when he was 10 and kind of 9 as well. But we follow Jorg, who is a prince of one of the kingdoms in our kind of fractured, well, I suppose, broken empire, to use the actual term. And he's in a world where we start to get glimpses of there used to be other people who seemed to be more advanced, but something happened. And now it's just all these individual people, all of them who have claims to the throne trying to take over. There used to be an empire, but everything is completely scattered. And it's this violent, warring bands of different people, all who want power. And he is prince of one of those such territories, I'll say, called Ankrath. And we find out more and more through and without getting into spoilers quite yet. But he essentially leaves home and ends up joining with this band of mercenaries who are extremely violent, terrible, terrible people. We don't really know at first why he decided to do it, but he goes with them and essentially is, despite the fact that he's extremely young, learning the ways of killing and rape and murder and torture and all of these things. And it's such a unique look because of the fact that this character is so young, and a little bit crazy actually reading. But I think honestly, having the character be this young too made a lot of the story work. Jorg is extremely impulsive, doesn't seem to really have any impulse control. It constantly, if anybody tells him to do something, he just acts like the child that he is and says he's going to do the opposite. And using this, and it is kind of it's a bit messed up, that young of a character with the source material, but it ends up working out in a very powerful way because of that unique take. I have definitely not read something quite like this before. It has a lot of things that will feel familiar, that very grimdark kind of has, almost a Game of Thrones type feel where everybody's vying for the throne. You definitely have that. But something I really liked is this book it starts out seeming a bit straightforward and quickly starts giving you little hints of what's to come. But as the book goes on, the halfway point, especially toward the end, it really expands and shows you there is so much more beneath the surface than what originally you had thought. And that's actually something that reminded me actually Warrior of All Time or Robert Jordan, where it seems like, oh, this is pretty straightforward, but then no, there's actually a lot of other stuff going on, and there's a lot of secrets, other things from the past as well. So it really was a very interesting read. With that, I do want to jump into kind of a quick spoiler section, just because there are a couple of things I want to talk about that I definitely do not want to spoil. So if you've not read this, check the description and you'll see the timestamp to skip forward to get past this section. I am going to be talking about some things that happen toward the end of the book. With that, what I really wanted to bring up is I did find very interesting. You had the whole idea of there's these kind of really powerful, I guess, sorcerers, for lack of a better term. They're called a few different things, but they're kind of playing this whole game, and it's the whole feeling of it is almost like a chess game, and that analogy is used many times. But you have Prince York, who's really looking to just, flip the board upside down, so to speak. And so you have the Travelers, but what I really kind of pulled me in and what I really thought was very interesting was the looks at the previous world. You'd gotten a lot of hints throughout the story that this is kind of actually taking place in a post-apocalyptic world. For example, Jorg, his father, the king, his castle is called the Tall Castle, and it said although it's actually not that tall, it was apparently supposed to be, and there's a description of basically like rebar in poured concrete is what this was made of, so making it sound like this actually was originally like a skyscraper, or at least one that was being built. There's other descriptions of bunkers and other places where they just see it as kind of normal, and that's what the builders did. That kind of past look, and that's something you see in other books as well. I've read lots of series where it's like, oh, the builders did this, but this really definitely seemed like it was trying to get a post-apocalyptic style. And then in some of the books that he's actually reading throughout, it does also use I should probably note philosophers that are real, and some of the kind of regions very much sound based on real regions. The authors know at the beginning did say, hey, all the actual philosophy is taken from real philosophers, so I didn't know if that was supposed to actually mean it was the same world. But we get toward the end where they find this secret weapon that's been actually something about it has been making certain people into monsters and turning these other people red. But they find this secret weapon, and it ends up being this whole entire like compartment and dungeon filled with apparently nuclear bombs or plutonium or something. And they set one off and end up just absolutely annihilating this whole place and really kind of bringing the stakes up. And the big thing that this actually really reminded me of was the video game Horizon Zero Dawn, which was one of my favorite video games in recent memory. And just kind of that idea of this more primitive medieval type society that exists in a post-apocalyptic world, and they don't actually really know. We do get in Prince of Thorns talk about the Day of a Thousand Suns, where so many people died, and it basically sounds like there was nuclear war. The bombs went off, so many people died, and that left this kind of weird, broken world. And they use that as the starting off point of why some of this magic and these other things are possible now because of the state of the world. So it was really interesting, and it was just so quick to get through as well that I was happily surprised really getting through it. Kind of needed a quicker book after the last book that I read as well too, but enjoyable. It is extremely dark, and so that's something you should definitely be aware of. But I definitely will be checking out the next two books of this trilogy and doing some more Mark Lawrence reading as well. Uh, that has been my review of Prince of Thorns. If you did enjoy this, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe.